Good morning to all. Today we are going to see chapter 1, period of transition. A transitional period is a period of great turbulence and turmoil as a study of the history of Europe from 17th to 19th century. You may be thinking, what is turbulence and turmoil? So, turbulence and turmoil means it is a kind of violence, disturbance, confusion took place among the people. So, life in 14th century Europe had been difficulty because people were engaged with wars, peasant revolts, and Black Death took place. So, what is this Black Death? Black Death was a natural disaster of the Middle Ages that killed millions of people throughout the world. So, the old medieval order was dying and people were seeking something new. So, in the medieval times, the church had dominated the arts, education, and learning also. So, church controlled everything. Whatever the church said, it was ultimate. No one had the right to question the church. Like, for example, church said that earth is a flat surface and sun is moving around the earth. People believed like that. No one had the right to question or prove that it is wrong. So then in 14th century, Italian scholars they began to take interest in writings of ancient Greeks and Romans. So these ideas that passed into Europe from Byzantium and the Arab world. So now we'll see in detail the period of transition from medieval to modern age. From 14th to 16th century, there took a changes of new ideas. So the transformation began in Italy and it included new ways of building, a new style of art and new ways of living. This period and the changes it brought a new idea is known as Renaissance. Renaissance meaning rebirth or revival. So this period saw a great increase in trade and wealth. So when trade and wealth increased, it affected art and science, architecture and sculpture. So the ideas became more realistic, more human, and less dominated by religion. So, a realistic and more human means the sculptures and the paintings, it looked very realistic. Realistic means, for example, when you see a picture of a Mona Lisa, you can see that it is a lifelike, means a lady is really standing, isn't it? So when you see a picture or a statue, that makes you a feeling that it is like very real it is. So that is called realistic. And in this time the church was also not dominating here. Paint Music explored new feelings and books asked real life questions. Now people they started asking questions now. Artists and writers were seen as important figures in the society now, and they were supported by nobles and landlords. So here the printed books helped to spread new ideas. Early days, before the invention of printing machines, the writers they were writing in their writing, and only few books were supplied because they cannot sit and write so many books, isn't it? So people they were not getting books for reading here. So when printing machines were invented, they could supply more books and people were able to read more things here. And like this, the new ideas started to spread. Now scholars, they began to ask questions about society, laws, philosophy and religion. The Renaissance, it reached its peak in the 16th century, mainly in the cities like Venice, Florence, Antwerp and Haarlem. People looked closely at the world now. They started to make detailed study in scientific observations, collecting exotic objects, and looking at new ideas. So here three events that marked the end of medieval period and the start of modern age was the fall of Constantinople in 1453 into the hands of Ottoman Turks, which ended the last trace of the old Roman Empire. Second point, the development of printing in the 1450s, which made books available to everyone who could read. Third point, the first voyage of Christopher Columbus to the Americas in 1492. Now we'll see sources of transition. So the writing materials, evidence or data is known as sources of history. Sources of information are typically classified into two groups, that is primary and secondary sources. So what is there in primary sources? Primary sources, it provides direct or first-hand evidence about an event or object, person, work of art, etc. So in primary source materials can be written and even non-written also. Personal correspondence, work of art, literature, architecture, etc. it includes. Like for example, you can see that La, La Pietà, it is the masterpiece of Renaissance sculpture by Michelangelo. It reveals the ideas of classical beauty with the naturalism. You can see the picture there in page number 18. Then the next person, that is Gerardus Mercator, the Flemish cartographer. He created the first effective way of showing the world as a sphere on a flat surface. That is, the first map was drawn by him. Mercator, map of the world. So it became the model for all other maps. Sundial, graphic illustrations, compass were all important primary sources of Renaissance history. Next we'll go to secondary sources. Secondary sources, in contrast, lacks the immediacy of the primary record. They contain information that has been interpreted, commented, analyzed or processed, like history textbooks, dictionaries, encyclopedias. All these books reveals are all examples of secondary sources. So here you can see secondary sources are often based on primary sources. That is like writings of Raphael, John Milton, Galileo, Martin Luther are the secondary sources of Renaissance. So children, for today's class, you revise till here and you try to answer the questions which is given in page number 23. I hope everyone you have your copies with you and these short answers you can write by yourself. So please read the chapter once again and try to answer exercise A from question number 1 to 7 you copy the answers in your copy. Okay, write neatly. Thank you.